Hello, Fiona here. So today we're going to look at defense mechanisms, and we're going to look at five now. They're quite a number. So this will be part one of maybe two or three parts later. These defense mechanisms are usually cognitive strategies that we turn to in times of stress or when we're trying to alleviate a sense of anxiety or just avoid the anxiety altogether, especially when we are feeling that our sense of self, like our self concept, how we view ourselves, is being threatened or being challenged. And so I want us to look at these defense mechanisms as how they can get in the way of our effort to build healthy relationships with others. Over the past 2 weeks, we've looked at how to build a healthy relationship with ourselves. So now we're going to step into how to build a healthy relationship with others. And so these defense mechanisms, I want us to look at them as ways in which we get in our own way when it comes to building a healthy relationship with others. Okay? So the first one we're going to look at is projection. And what projection is kind of like how a projector works. What is within us, we then project it onto other people. So the tendency is that we are quite unconscious about the thing that is within us, but then now we attribute it to other people, right? So perhaps we are quite selfish in the fact that we don't really consider other people's needs. We constantly want us to be considered first. And so when someone else doesn't consider us first, we call them selfish. And really, they're just saying to you that maybe they're not able to do that thing for you at that particular time, or they don't have the money to support you in that particular way at that particular time. But you'll be like, no, you're so selfish. I can't believe that you wouldn't be able to do this for me. But the reality is that they just don't have the time or the money or whatever it is that you want them to support you with at that time, right? And because quite often you know within you that you would definitely choose to do something for yourself before you step out of your way to do something for someone else, then you're imagining that that's how other people operate as well, right? Sometimes it could be something along the lines of judgment, right? If someone says to you that they're not able to afford to go for a concert that many of you are planning to go for, in your mind, your tendency would be to be like, kwani, when do you ever have money? Ama, what do you do with your money? You see, statements like those are judgment. So should a time come when you don't have money and you're not able to do something, then you start imagining that other people are also passing judgment on you because that's something that you would do. So that's projection. And the way in which projection would come in between you and your efforts of building a healthy relationship with other people is that what happens to the sense of intimacy between you and the other is it's cut off, right? You are relating with that person based on an imaginary perception that you have of them and are not actually dealing with the reality of who they are, how they feel, how they behave, because you are projecting something onto them that is not true. Yeah. The second defense mechanism is displacement, and displacement is a shifting or a redirection of an impulse towards a target. So what that means in simpler terms is if your boss, for example, at work makes you very angry on a particular day, but you know you can't talk back to your boss, you can't shout back at them, you can't speak out for yourself at that particular moment perhaps, so you've bottled up that feeling of like rage inside you, and then you get home and then you find that the lady who comes in to help you with cleaning the house, that day you had asked her to do something in the morning, and you come back and it was not done the way that you wanted, and you just explode, right? You get so angry that it's so disproportionate to the thing that was supposed to be done, but it's because you have displaced the anger that you were feeling from your boss. It has been bottled up, and now you've used an alternative target to be able to get out those feelings, that impulse, to release that impulse. usually you'll find that it is a target, the substitute target tends to be like lower in power than the initial target, the original target, right? So it's a man getting so upset with the mother and is unable to, lash out or speak back to the mother. And so they come home and they take it out on the kids, right? Or you take it out on a cat, you kick the cat or you kick your dog. So that's displacement. And the way in which this can come in between your efforts to build a healthy relationship is the fact that you start to treat other people like a dustbin for your more challenging and difficult emotions. So people are not understanding why you're relating to them with emotions that are so far, out of um, proportion to the situation that you find yourself in. The third defense mechanism is repression. And what repression is an unconscious shelving of memories or emotions that perhaps might have been too difficult to deal with at the time that it happened, right? And what happens with repression is that it'll come out sideways in relationships with people. So for example, you and your partner are having issues with sexual intimacy. It doesn't matter what she does. For some reason it feels like you can't, open up in that aspect. And so maybe you go to see a therapist because she's like, hey, I'm not understanding what's going on. Is it me? Am I not enough? Am I not doing the right things? And so once you start seeing the therapist, maybe a memory comes where an uncle or someone sexually abused you when you were younger. And so what happens with repressed memories is that from the time that it happened to the time that we remember, a great deal of time will have passed and we'll have been completely unconscious about it. So it's not that we are actively putting that memory aside. No, 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 no. That's not how repression works. So the fact that we have never revisited that memory means that we did not resolve the issue that arose from that particular instance, right? And so that's why it comes out sideways. And repressed memories will affect our relationships because of the fact that we are unconscious, which is why it's important to engage in healing work in a proactive way so that we start to unpack all the things that could have caused us some form of hurt or pain from our past and resolve them so that the unconsciousness does not then end up hurting the people that we are trying to enter into relationship with later. The fourth defense mechanism is denial. And denial is a refusal to acknowledge facts about a situation or to acknowledge certain feelings or certain thoughts about a situation. Denial looks like being on a team or at the workplace. A client says something to you and you have an excuse or a reason as to why it is you did the thing the way you did it, and them they're not happy, but you're like, no, I know my stuff, so don't tell me. Yeah. Your manager will come and say, oh, you're supposed to do this and this way, but you're like, no, but see, now me, I did it like this, no, 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 right? So there's an excuse or a reason. Yeah. Then one of your colleagues who's on your team says, okay, I think this thing needs to be done this way, you haven't been doing it, and you're like, no, 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 me, I know how it's supposed to be done, and I've done it, right? So that refusal to acknowledge that really there is a need for improvement on your part is denial. And the reason we're going to denial is because we don't want to deal with the consequence of acknowledging that fact about that situation. So in this particular instance, it could be that accepting or acknowledging that there is a need for improvement in a particular area, for you it means then that all along you haven't been knowing what you're doing, and that challenges your self-concept because you believe that you know your stuff, right? You believe that you're smart, you believe that you're an intellectual, you believe that you've got things figured out, and so to have to integrate and accept that fact challenges that self-concept, which is why now you will resort to denial. And the way this will affect our relationships is that people will not want to work with you, right? People will not want to engage with someone that is not receptive to feedback that is true, is honest, and can support growth, not just for them, but for the relationship, right? The final one that we'll look at for this video is introjection. And introjection is sort of like the opposite of projection. So projection is something that's inward, within me, that I cast outside. Introjection is something that is outside, that I internalize, right? So it's an internalization of an external authority, whether it's their belief, their attitude, or their personality. It is quite unconscious, and we are adopting those beliefs or attitudes in an unconscious way. For example, if you're a child growing up in a home where the adults, for whatever reason, hate people of a certain race or a certain tribe or a certain religion. So growing up in that home as a child, you sort of take on that attitude or that belief that this tribe is bad, this religion is bad, and I don't like those people. You don't really get to analyze it, right? So you grew up into an adult who is hating people of a certain group, not having done the work of identifying why it is that you don't like them, or even just setting out to discover your own beliefs or your own attitudes about that group, right? You don't necessarily have to have the same opinion as the people who raised you on everything, right? You have permission to be able to figure out what your own values, beliefs, your own principles are. Even in the workplace, you might find like your boss doesn't like a certain company, so now even you don't like that company. But if someone was to ask you why you don't like that company, you can't give like a tangible answer, right? So having the opportunity to like investigate some of our beliefs and attitudes allows us to see the places in which we might have introjected other people's beliefs and attitudes. And so introjection will come in between your efforts of building a healthy relationship, because then you might be antagonistic towards people that you have no real substantial reason to not want to engage with, other than other people in your life have expressed negative feelings or negative thoughts about them. Okay? So yeah, those are the first 5 defense mechanisms that we've looked at. And so the invitation for you watching this video is to review, like look back in your life and see, have there been instances where you have resorted to any of these defense mechanisms? What was the particular situation around you having done that? What part of yourself, what self concept were you trying to preserve or protect by resorting to that defense mechanism? It could be that in the coming week, as you're reflecting, having already learned these things, maybe you didn't have the vocabulary to explain a certain way of thinking or a certain way of behaving. So now that you do, right, are you able to see situations where you have very quickly gone into denial, or situations where you have projected something about that is within you onto someone else, right? And so I'm looking forward to hearing or reading any of your questions, comments on the same. And until next time, ciao!